This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, 9/11 came from Riyadh and Tehran. With us this evening, Clare Lopez, the Vice President for Research and Analysis at the Center for Security Policy. Clare Lopez, what an honor and a privilege to have you on the Glazov Gang.
Hi, Jamie. So glad to be with you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for coming on and all the powerful and brilliant work that you do and all the contributions you're making to truth-telling and to the defense of our society and our civilization.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Clare, you've done some wonderful moments for the Glazov Gang. I've been looking at your work and reading a lot of your material. And even in our discussions and what I've read, something's come up that I really wanted to bring you on the show about. That everybody, the overall thought and idea about 9/11 is Taliban, Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda, whatever. But what's not talked about and what's not really known, and of course we're not going to wait for Don Lemon and Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow to invite you on to discuss it, is that the 9/11 attacks were conceived in Riyadh and Tehran. They were launched from Afghanistan, but conceived in Saudi Arabia and Iran. Can we begin with that this evening, please?
Yes, thank you so much for covering this, especially at a time when our negotiators from the State Department are in talks with the Taliban that I call surrender talks about getting us out of Afghanistan after 18 long years. So the way that I first came to be studying and looking at this whole topic was during a legal case called the Havlish case, named after a widow and some of the other survivors and other widows of 9/11 pilots and others from the 9/11 attacks. And that legal case, for which I was an expert witness, concluded in December of 2011 with a ruling by Judge George Daniels, Southern District of New York in Manhattan, a ruling that said that Iran and Hezbollah were co-responsible with Al-Qaeda for the attacks of 9/11. Now, I will say we did not look specifically at the role of Saudi Arabia. That is absolutely part of it as well. During the research for that case is when I came across so much of the information that I've been talking with you about over the last few days, and that is that the concept, the original idea of attacking America came from the Ayatollah Khomeini, that is Ruhollah Khomeini, in about 1988 before he died about a year later. And his idea was what he called Shaitan Dar Atash, meaning Satan in the flames. That's what they called it, Shaitan Dar Atash. And his idea was to use planes to fly into buildings. That didn't happen for a long time until the alliance among Iran, Hezbollah, and Al-Qaeda took place in a great big jihad gathering in Khartoum, Sudan in 1990, when recently ousted leader of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, convened all the jihadis of the world, if you will, including the top leadership of the Iranian regime and Hezbollah and many others. That's when the alliance was formed. And so, yes, the execution of 9/11 attacks certainly came out of Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda executed the attacks. The Taliban sheltered Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan until after the 9/11 attacks. But the concept, the plan, indeed the training for the hijackers came from Iran and Hezbollah, and with the collaboration of the regime in Riyadh.
Thank you, Clare. Well, one of the things that we can at least be consoled by is that, you know, during the Obama administration, Obama really held Iran accountable for this, right?
Well, don't we wish? You know, as I just said, the ruling from Judge George Daniels at the conclusion of this legal case, which, by the way, the widows brought to a group, a consortium of legal firms to look into, which is how we all got involved, because specifically they did not trust the United States government to get to the bottom of it. That's why they came to us.
Wow.
But when the ruling came down in late December 2011, we really thought that this would be news, that this would be important, an important finding. Well, not only was the information completely squashed by the media, but according to Ken Timmerman, who, as you probably know, a well-respected author, investigative journalist, wrote just a couple months before that, that during the period of time after which we'd submitted the case to the judge, which was May 2011, and the ruling in December 2011, somebody or somebodies identify themselves as from the CIA, this is according to Ken Timmerman's reporting, discovered where some of our defector witnesses were located. These are Iranian defectors who are part of our case, former IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, former MOIS, Ministry of Intelligence and Security, and went to them and literally threatened them with bodily harm if they didn't withdraw their testimony. Now, thankfully, that didn't happen. They were moved to safety. The case went forward. But according to Ken Timmerman's reporting, that's how this news was received by the Obama administration.
And when did this happen?
Well, the case ran through the 2000s, the early part of 2000s, concluded in December 2011.
I see, right. So yeah, so ending, yeah, I was just going to say with Obama in charge and with Brennan and Holder and all those individuals, this is not really a great surprise. Claire, yes, so something, we know that something very scary is in play with the powers that be. Claire, before we move on into what this means, of course, in terms of Afghanistan and this withdrawal, quote unquote, that we're doing, in terms of Iran, let me ask this. When the Obama administration released and gave those billions and billions of dollars in cash, however much it was, how much damage did that do?
Oh, tremendous damage. And it wasn't just the sheer amount of the cash, which was transferred, as we all know now, shrink-wrapped pallets loaded onto unmarked airplanes, kind of the way drug dealers and arms dealers in the black market do business. So it wasn't just the sheer amount of money, which of course did not go to the benefit of the Iranian people, which they know, by the way, and are in the streets protesting about. It went to support of terror groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. But it was the image of what we were doing. Now, we were exchanging cash for hostages, for one thing. 4 hostages were released after that cash was transferred. But it was also the impression that the Obama administration was bending over backwards to do anything that the mullah's regime, or maybe I should call it the IRGC's regime, wanted, in order, because they knew, the Tehran regime knew that the Obama administration was desperate eventually for a nuclear deal. And this was in the offing. The talks began behind the scenes in Oman between then chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, John Kerry, later Secretary of State John Kerry, began well back, perhaps even as early as 2011. So we can see, why this information was not at all welcome when our case became public and was released.
Right. Well, Claire, I just want to paint this quick picture here, because in terms of what you know, what you're telling us, obviously Obama and Brennan and Eric Holder and all the people that were running the Obama administration, they know They know who the mullahs are. They know what Iran is up to. They know what Iran did in terms of also what you're talking about, 9/11. So we know that these people are trying to destroy us and kill us. We know that they're killing the women in the streets that dare to take off the hijab. We know what they're doing to their own people. And yet we give them cash to keep their regime afloat at a moment, arguably, where the regime also, because of its own incompetence and starvation, could have collapsed. Just very quickly, what do you think of extending a lifeline to the people who are cutting our jugular veins?
So, you know, it's been 3 presidential administrations now, Jamie, from President George W. Bush to President Obama and now President Trump. These administrations all know what Iran did to us, together with Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and Saudi Arabia on 9/11. And yet that regime in Tehran has not yet been held to account by anyone. I will also say that some of the information about those attacks and the Iranian and the Hezbollah involvement in them are contained in the 9/11 Commission report, which came out in, August of 2004. So this information is known. It's been known for a very long time, and yet the Iranian regime is not held to account for what they did to us.
Right, Claire, with the little amount of time we have left, and we'd really like to have you back so we can continue this discussion on so many of these issues. But you've mentioned to me, and in some of your notes, and of course a lot of your work that I've been reading, but you've made the analogy of Henry Kissinger's devious betrayal of South Vietnam during Vietnam, and how he urged this, engagement with Taliban, in his case, the engagement with Viet Cong, the engagement with North Vietnam, and how that led to the betrayal of South Vietnam. And you're saying that there's a parallel here in terms of now what we're doing in Afghanistan with this belief that we can negotiate with the Taliban.
It sure looks that way, Jamie. So the United States government has been in what I call surrender talks with the Taliban now literally for years. Talks being held in Doha, Qatar, sometime last year. Many rounds. I forget what round we're on now, 8th or 9th. But our envoy, Zalmay Khalilzad, is the one in direct contact with these Taliban negotiators, who, by the way, include the 5 detainees from Guantanamo Bay that Obama released in return, in exchange of the traitor Bo Bergdahl. One of those Taliban detainees from Gitmo was the former governor of the province of Herat, the westernmost province of Afghanistan, next door to Iran. That governor's job, and part of what I guess landed him at Gitmo, is that he helped to arrange pre-9/11 operational planning meetings among the Iranians, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. That's who's sitting across the table with us. But the point that you're making is a good one, and that is that in all of these talks, the government of Afghanistan is not involved. We are holding these talks bilaterally, the United States government with the Taliban, to the exclusion of the government of Afghanistan, which is completely sidelined. And they're being told, well, after the talks are over and the conclusion is reached, then we the United States government, we urge you, the government, the legal, legitimate government of Afghanistan, to just deal with the Taliban.
One doesn't know whether to laugh or cry, but in this case, of course, crying is the option for those of us that love freedom and love Western civilization, and including the Afghan people and everybody that suffers from jihad. So Claire, so what's going to happen here is we've given our American lives, American treasure for so many years, and now it appears that if things go this way, the Taliban gets back into power, and then a safe haven for Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups again. We're going to have to continue this another time, but in a minute, Claire, if you were on the phone with President Trump and you had 60 seconds, what would you tell him if you were going to advise him about the Afghan withdrawal?
Well, I think what I would probably say is that we need to look back to what happened in the 1990s. That is after the conclusion of the war against the Soviet Red Army in Afghanistan during the 1980s, when the warlords that the United States had backed and funded and supported turned on each other in a vicious civil war that tore Afghanistan apart. The Taliban, with the backing, by the way, of the government of Pakistan, which backs it to this day, the Taliban emerged victorious. It looks very much now like that same scenario could play out again. The Tajiks, the Hazaras, the Uzbeks are all arming and getting ready for a renewed conflict. The Taliban as well, Haqqanis, which are part of the Taliban network. It looks like we could be headed for that same kind of scenario once again. And with the backing of Pakistan, the Taliban looks to be in a good position to emerge victorious. Let's not forget that Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State also have a presence in Afghanistan now. It could really become another disastrous situation where jihadis from all over the world, in fact, again flock to Afghanistan, and the poor people of Afghanistan once again will be victims of the civil war that looks imminent at this point.
Well, Claire, yeah, it really looks like if the Democratic Party gets back into the White House, they'll really take care of this situation successfully. Claire, thank you so much. For those of our viewers who are on the edge of their seat and really want to follow you and support you and get involved in all of your work, where do they go?
Well, I would recommend first the Center for Security Policy.org. Our website, shorter URL, is securefreedom.org, goes to the same place. Please have a look also at our Iran case website, which is www.iran911case.com. You will see all that I was talking about, including links to our affidavits in that case.
Fantastic. And where are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter at my name, Claire M. Lopez. Facebook, same thing.
Claire Lopez, thank you so much for everything that you do, and we hope you'll come back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching the Glazov Gang tonight. We'll see you soon. Good night.